I'm in the midst of an extremely busy season of life. I've been pouring my heart and soul into a secret project for the past few months, which has been extremely exciting and fulfilling, but also very challenging and stressful. On top of that project, I recently launched a new clothing collection called our Hero Collection, and I've been running the I Am More Than podcast, strategizing new launches for More Than, while also trying to enjoy the season of being a new wife and remaining present so that I can show up for my friends and my family. I'm under a lot of good stress, but my body can't decipher between good stress and bad stress, which has resulted in a lot more stomach pain, frequent headaches, and a lot of trouble sleeping. I've been on a health journey when it comes to managing my stomach pain for quite some time now, and during busy seasons, that's the first thing that begins flaring up. I had a wild encounter, which you'll hear about in this episode, that inspired me to begin working with a functional dietitian to get me back to just feeling my best. For the past 2 months, I've been going through testing and working as a patient of this week's amazing guest, Jillian Smith. Jillian is the lead dietitian for Gut Personal. Her mission is to empower women to stop guessing when it comes to their health and to get to the root causes of their gut symptoms. After all of your health starts with your gut. She's also been on her own health journey, and she's been able to use her experiences to relate to her clients on a much deeper level. She uses personalized coaching and lab testing to understand the root causes of your symptoms and come up with a procedure to get you feeling better. I went through gut testing over the last month, and when we sat down to go through my results, we were able to see what's going on in my gut on a microscopic level. From there, she developed a protocol to get me back on track to feeling my best. It's been such an informative, smooth, and easy process, unlike any of my past experiences with gastroenterologists. In this episode, she explains how your gut is truly the center of all of your health. She explains why IBS is a BS diagnosis, how probiotics could be doing more damage than good, and how the majority of us have parasites. Gross, I know. She answered all the questions our community wrote in and explained these complex health topics in a super understandable way. If you're interested in diving deeper into your own gut health, Gut Personal is giving our community a discount on all their supplements and their testing kits when you use code MORETHAN. Now let's get into this week's episode. What's up, friends? It's Jordan, and you're listening to the I Am More Than podcast. We're a community of multifaceted and imperfect women here to inspire, educate, entertain, and grow together. We're excited you're here to hang with us and happy to have you part of the More Than movement. So we just have to tell our listeners about how we reconnected, because I think it truly is the craziest story, and it just proves there's no such thing as coincidences.
Oh my gosh, it's absolutely insane. The fact that we're even here talking right now, it's been such a crazy series of events.
So I'll take them all the way back to March. I went to my first ever South by Southwest event. I'm about a year into Austin. I don't know a ton of people. Like, when you're in with the in crowd here, you know about all the cool events. But if you're not in with it, you don't know anything that's going on. So I was invited to this fashion show, and I went with one of my girlfriends, didn't know anybody else there, and just started connecting with some of the other girls that were also in attendance. Hit it off with a couple of them, and one brought up that they had a ticket to the live recording of the Skinny Confidential Him and Her podcast at Soho House. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would die to go there. How the heck did you get on the list? Is there a list? Like, how do I get in? And she's like, well, I actually can't go. So you can just use my ticket, but you'll just have to go in under my name. And I'm like, okay, so now I'm sneaking in to try and meet the people that I'd love to be signed with someday. Is that a good look? Is that not a good look? I don't know. So I had like this moral dilemma for hours. And then finally I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go home. There's no reason for me to be here. I talked myself out, made all these excuses. I literally open up the door to go to the garage and you walk out of it.
Such a trippy moment. I mean, we have seen each other since college back in Arizona. And it was totally one of those.
Yeah.
Wait, Jordan? Jillian? Wait, what? And I was holding all these supplements in it.
And you looked so cute, so chic. And I could tell clearly you're there for an event, but it took us both a second to like click, like, hold on, we're not in Arizona. Why are you here? And you're like, why are you here? And come to find out, you're the lead dietitian for Gut Personal, who is sponsoring the event. And that's when I was like, okay, I can't ignore this sign. I am sneaking my booty in there. And we ended up having the best time. We networked with so many incredible people. And now Gut Personal is one of the sponsors. And I've been going through this whole gut journey with you over the last 2 months. So it's just such a testament to the fact that there's no such thing as coincidences. And when you actually take advantage of opportunities that fall on your lap, such amazing things can happen.
Oh my gosh, I freaking love it so much. And yes, we're going through this whole now gut healing journey with you. And that never would have happened if we didn't just so happen to cross paths on that elevator in Austin. Just the most crazy thing. And I'm so grateful that we did and that we did reconnect. And now we're on this podcast.
So if we go all the way back, God, 10 years ago when we met in college, I was studying nutrition out of necessity because my gut was completely trashed. And I had just gone through 13 different antibiotics from the Mayo Clinic and was like, there has to be a better way. So I was so curious just to find out for my own healing what this whole functional health world was about. I was working with all these different naturopaths. And so I know why I'm so passionate about this, but I don't remember hearing your story and how you got into this. So I'm very curious to know what your background is.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Let's get into it. So, where to even begin? I myself also struggled with so many gut health issues growing up. I first remember my issues starting back in high school, and I did competitive cheerleading at the time. I was struggling with a lot of just digestive weird stuff going on, and I couldn't really put my finger on it. And I was struggling with a lot of constipation. I did not know that only pooping once a week was not normal. Just thought that was normal because that's all I knew. So I was very constipated, which of course makes you feel very uncomfortable. I was bloated, gassy, just didn't feel my best. But at the time, I could never quite put my finger on it. And I find that a lot with my clients. It's kind of these symptoms that you've just normalized because they have been with you for so long, you don't even realize that they're not actually normal. So that was me in high school. I get into college and I was still struggling with a lot of gut issues. I started studying nutrition, which is how you and I connected because we were both in the same group of study. And it was really in college where my gut symptoms hit their absolute peak. And looking back in hindsight, it makes sense. I mean, I was pulling all-nighters in the library, wasn't sleeping, stressed to the max, probably was not eating very well. And so all these things kind of compounded and my symptoms were just an absolute wreck. And it was really taking a toll at me physically because I was physically in pain. I remember being out on date night with my boyfriend and I would literally have to go into his car, lay horizontal in his back seat and massage my stomach because I was in so much physical pain. And then over the years of this, it's then started impacting my mental health, my emotional health. I was canceling nights out with my girlfriends. I was constantly anxious and it was just a mess. It was so, so terrible. Fast forward, I graduate college, I become a registered dietitian, and I'm working in a acute care hospital. So my training actually started being in like an emergency style room hospital, and I was the lead clinical dietitian on the staff. And I kept on seeing the same narrative that I saw play out in my own life of a pill for every ill. You know, I went to so many doctors, so many specialists. I had the colonoscopy, the endoscopy, all the tests done. Everything came back, oh, you're the epitome of health. Everything looks great. You look healthy. And it's so defeating to continuously get that narrative and just know deep down, like, this is not normal. I feel like absolute garbage. So it was around this time where I started getting these things pop up on my Instagram feed about functional medicine. And I started learning more about this like naturopathic, this integrative approach to health. And I was really interested. And so it totally started off by me just doing my own little side research. Like, this is really interesting. A field of medicine that's actually looking for the root causes. And it's not just treating your symptoms, it's actually going a step further and saying, why do you have these symptoms in the first place? So I absolutely fell in love with this model. I went and did more advanced training in functional medicine, became certified in functional medicine, quit my job at the hospital, got into private practice with Gut Personal. And now I actually see clients. I work with clients. I do tons of gut testing, which is what you did. And I'm sure we'll be getting into
Oh,
to
yes.
figure out the root causes to imbalances. It's how I healed my gut. And now I get to do that same thing for so many other women. And it's just the greatest gift.
Behind everybody that has such passion, which you can tell you have such passion for what you do, and even working with you as a client of yours throughout this process, you're so knowledgeable. And it's fun knowing that I knew you prior to getting into this field because I'm like, she's a freaking genius. And she really has empathy for the people that are going through it. And I'm glad to know I'm sorry that you went through it and that you experienced those symptoms, but it's also nice knowing that when you're describing symptoms and when you're describing pain, having somebody else validate that pain and not just say, like, yep, we all have it. It's like, okay. So just because
Yeah,
it's normal to be in pain, we should all be in pain all the time. And
100.
I remember coming to you and saying, I don't remember a day without pain. I
Mhm.
truly don't. I don't know what it would be like to not have stomach pain. And when you had brought up that you would have to lay down horizontal your boyfriend's car because you're in so much pain, was that bloating? Was that shooting pains? Was that the constipation? What was the cause for you?
For me, it was overproduction of gas in my gut from too much bad bacteria. So when you have imbalances with the bacteria in your gut and you have too much of the bad guys, every time you eat, they're gobbling up the food that you had. They release these gases, and this can show up to you as really painful gas cramps, really painful bloating, and that is what was part of my journey. So I would get these excruciating pains, which now in hindsight, I know it was just these really intense gas pains at the time from that overgrowth of bacteria. And back then, I had no idea though, because I was going to the doctor. They were looking at a colonoscopy, which is, by the way, not looking at the bacteria in your gut. And so, of course, that was coming back normal, looks good. However, it was just measuring the wrong thing. And so that's what it was for me. It was too much bad bacteria. It wasn't until I did that gut test that I could actually see that, treat that, and those symptoms went away.
Interesting. And now a colonoscopy, they're not looking for bacteria. Is an endoscopy looking for bacteria or what is that looking for?
No. So both the colonoscopy and the endoscopies, they're looking for more of those structural abnormalities. So they're going in there, they're going to rule out the big bad things, which is great. They're looking for things like inflammatory bowel disease, colitis, Crohn's, cancers, polyps. So really great to go in there, rule that stuff out. But also when those things come back normal, you're still like, okay, but now what do I do? So with the gut testing, it's a functional lab test. So we can go in and measure the function of your gut, and we're measuring the exact microbes that are growing inside of your gut. So we're looking at your beneficial strains of bacteria, the opportunistic overgrowth, or AKA bad bacteria that's growing in your gut. We're looking for infections, pathogens, viruses, parasites. And then we can also see, how well you're digesting your food. So we get a much more microscopic look into what's the actual function of your gut doing. Because when we're working with things like IBS, for example, that's a functional gut disorder. There's an issue with the function of your gut. So that's where these sort of tests really come in handy.
This is not talked about if you were to just go to a gastroenterologist. I've seen so many of them and it's just like, nope, either your tests look normal and I don't know why you're in pain. So like, here's something, at least in my case, it was like, here's to stop the inflammation. And they'd put you on these anti-inflammatories that did the direct opposite.
Right.
Or people say, just take Gas X if you're having gas pain.
Yes, yes. And then you have to bring up, but why do you have that inflammation in the first place? Like, okay, yeah, I could take a medication to get rid of this inflammation, but am I just going to have to be on this for the rest of my life? I was way more in the camp of, but why do I have these symptoms in the first place? Because I'm not trying to be on a medication for the rest of my life.
Yep. So when you first get introduced to this entire world, you take this poop test, you get to see what's actually going on. Did
Yeah.
you just heal it through supplementation or what else did you incorporate?
Truly, I did heal it with supplements, but also the nutrition and stress and your lifestyle habits, those foundations are so essential. And, it's so funny. Looking back in hindsight, I was so stressed to the max about my gut issues. My gut issues were causing me a lot of stress. Knowing what I know now, you can get into this vicious cycle because if your stress is off the charts, your gut health symptoms are also going to be off the charts and you can get into this cycle. And so along with the supplements that I use all natural herbs and botanicals to rebalance my gut microbiome. But I also really shifted around my mindset. I made massive shifts to my lifestyle, my habits, my sleep, my exercise routines, massive shifts to my nutrition. At the time, I was very restricted with my diet because I was so afraid to eat because I didn't want symptoms to come up. So I followed very strictly the low FODMAP diet. And for anybody who doesn't know what that is, it's basically a diet that you are prescribed or recommended if you have IBS or SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And it's very restrictive. It cuts out so many foods. And I was following it to a T. And so I had a very restrictive diet that was causing me a lot of stress. And I started to learn that as I healed my gut and I started clearing out that root cause, which was those imbalances, I was able to also expand my diet so that I could be bringing in all of those nutritious foods that I needed in order to heal. So it was kind of a hodgepodge of a bunch of different things. And I think that brings up a great point about gut health is it is very complex. And I think when people want that quick fix, that one size solution of, oh, I just want to heal my gut and feel amazing, unfortunately, it doesn't exist because there's so many factors that are impacting your gut.
I could not agree more. People don't look at gut health as such a holistic perspective that you really have to change everything. And I love that you brought up your mindset because the link between the two, we talked about it a little bit in Bridget's episode, who is the CEO of Gut Personal, your boss. She was talking about the gut brain connection. And yes, we all have heard of that. We know that to some extent. But I think if you don't start in your mind, then your gut can never heal. It doesn't matter how many supplements you're taking, right?
Absolutely. I completely agree. And, you would have told me this back when I was in college. I would have said that this is all woo woo, that that's not real. But it absolutely is real. And you have to fix the mindset piece before you can go about fixing the physical body because your brain is running the show on it all. And so even just making the shift of I can heal because I had struggled for so many years and I had so many doctors in my ear of like, oh, it's normal, just learn how to manage your symptoms. I was telling myself this narrative that this was going to be my reality. I was just going to have to figure out how to live with these symptoms and manage them. And so I had to completely flip that narrative. And that took a lot of mindset work, but I had to flip it in order to actually heal, to believe that I could heal, that it was possible for me to heal, that I deserve to feel really, really good. And that took a lot of work, but it truly is an essential first step going about any sort of health journey.
It's such an essential part of any health journey, not just gut health, but when it comes to literally any part. And I think so many of us get a diagnosis or a prognosis from a doctor or even self-diagnosed, and you feel trapped by it. I think that's how I felt for so long because every doctor that I went to would give me a new diagnosis that I had to try and learn what it was. And one that is so common that we've all heard of is IBS, which I've seen you talk about the fact that IBS is BS. So I'd love for you to actually talk about what is IBS and why is it thrown around so often?
Oh my goodness. So what IBS is it can become more of like a blanket diagnosis when the doctors have ruled out everything else. So maybe they've done the tests, they've done your colonoscopies, everything's coming back normal. So they'll throw this blanket diagnosis of IBS. So maybe you struggle with bloating or you struggle with irregular bowel habits, either you're constipated or you're diarrhea or you have a lot of stomach pain. These are some of that diagnostic criteria to give you that IBS diagnosis. But I always am out here saying IBS is such a BS diagnosis. And I wish I had known this at the time when I was struggling because I was also told that I had IBS. So many people are. But here's the thing and why I think it's BS is it's not telling you anything about what's causing those IBS symptoms. And there's always a cause to those. There's some sort of root cause going on that's causing those IBS symptoms. And so just getting the blanket term of, oh, you have IBS, do the low FODMAP diet, learn how to manage your symptoms, maybe eat more fiber, drink more water. I mean, those are recommendations I've heard time and time again. And it's doing nothing to address those symptoms and that root cause. And so I'm more in the camp of, I don't care that you've been told you have IBS because we're going to take this a step further and actually figure out what's causing those symptoms because the IBS just isn't helpful.
No, it's not helpful. And it's also, there's so many contradicting facts out there about what you're supposed to be doing. Like you said, drink more water, eat certain foods, do this, do that. And if you don't know what's actually causing it, you can be doing that vicious cycle forever. And I think that especially when it comes to women, gut pain and our gut health issues is so normalized
Yeah.
that it's, at least in my world, it would be weird for me to not feel like I was in gut pain. And I remember, again, bringing that up to you and knowing that it's somebody that has also struggled with that and knowing you no longer do. It's
Mhm.
nice knowing that there's hope out there. Like you said, it all starts with your mindset. But I'd love to debunk a couple of the things that a lot of our listeners probably think is completely normal. one that we kept getting when we did our poll on Instagram was talking about bloating. So first, I want you to talk about what is bloating to begin with, and also should we be bloated 24/7? Because I think people are just like, oh, well, if I eat, I bloat.
Yeah. Uh, let's get into it. So, when it comes to bloating, something I always like to start with is there's a difference between bloating and just maybe your stomach making room for the food that you just ate, right? And so I think sometimes, especially with women, I find that sometimes women just they eat, maybe their stomach expands so that it can make room for that food that they just ate. And they're like, oh my goodness, I'm so bloated. Not always the case. Your stomach naturally it is going to expand, right? It has to make room for that food that you just ate. But if that bloating becomes distension, sometimes I'll describe it like that pregnant belly look or feeling like you need to unbutton your jeans. It's very hard, painful to the touch. Maybe there's a lot of gas accompanying it. That's when it is no longer in the realm of normal, and you absolutely don't have to live with that. Like I was kind of saying, bloating was absolutely part of my journey. And so I get it. It is so uncomfortable, not only physically uncomfortable, but it also just sucks to I couldn't even recognize myself when I looked in the mirror, right? And I know that that's a story for a lot of people who struggle with that severe bloating. And the truth is, there's a lot of things that can cause bloating. So it's not as simple as many of us would like. And the most important thing with bloating is figuring out what's causing your bloating. What's your unique root cause? So like I had said, my unique root cause was overgrowth of bacteria. Other really common root causes that I see is just not having the ability to properly digest your foods. So this can come from eating too quickly, not chewing thoroughly, eating on the go. As a dietitian, probably one of the most common questions I get is, what's your favorite on the go breakfast? And I'm always like, well, let's back it up because we shouldn't be eating on the go. We need to be focusing on our digestion so that our body can do what it's meant to do, digest that food so that you're not getting bloated afterwards. Other things, stress. Stress absolutely impacts our bloating via that gut brain connection. So there's a lot of different things that can be going on inside of the gut. Figuring out what's causing your bloat is very, very important because it is not normal to be uncomfortably bloated, especially not 24 hours out of the day.
You just said we shouldn't be eating on the go. I
Yeah.
know this and I still need to pay attention to this because it is so important when you actually like sit and hold that space to enjoy your meal. Something that I've heard is that you shouldn't be drinking water. You should have warm water when you're eating your meal so that helps with digestion. Is there truth to that? What's your opinion?
So, my opinion on this is there is something to be said about limiting your fluid intake during meal times. Typically, what I tell my clients is do your hydrating between meals, not during your meals. During your meals, you can sip on water, whatever beverage you're having, sip to if you're thirsty, but don't be chugging your water because what can happen is you can dilute your digestive juices. So every time we eat, your body starts pumping out digestive juices, things like stomach acid, pancreatic enzymes, bile to break down our fats. And if we're chugging a bunch of water with this, it starts to dilute those enzymes and you won't be able to effectively break down your food as well. So there is some truth to that. And that's why I always say do your rehydrating between your meals and then just sip to thirst during meals.
Very interesting. Okay, I'm going to remember that one. You explained it the best I've ever heard it. So I appreciate it. Now I'll actually pay attention. Another big question that we got is should I be drinking lemon water, warm lemon water as soon as I wake up? We've seen this trend on Instagram and all over TikTok. What should we be doing?
So here's my take on this one. It can be a great morning ritual. To be honest, I find myself doing it sometimes, not because I think it's the magic pill that's going to help all my gut issues, get rid of bloat. I do it because it's a nice morning ritual to wake up, not be on my phone, sip something warm and comforting. It's great for my nervous system and it just feels really good. So that's why I do it for those benefits. It's not the magic cure that's going to skyrocket your health. But for some people, it can be really nice to have as your morning ritual, but also to bring a little bit of that acidity into your stomach first thing in the morning. Some of that lemon water can be really great for digestion. So sometimes if I have clients who have issues with digesting their foods, feeling bloated after meals, I'll recommend adding a little bit of lemon water before your meal to help support your stomach acid levels. It's also rich in minerals. So I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I also don't think it's the magic cure that some people make it out to be.
Love how you phrase that because I think we're all looking for quick fixes. I
Yeah.
mean, we're all guilty of it. And when it comes to your health, there's no such thing as a quick fix, especially when it comes to healing your gut health. And a lot of people correlate gut health to what your appearance looks like. If you have a slim figure, if you have a flat stomach, and there's just not a lot of validity to that, but people don't fully understand. They think that if you have abs and a flat stomach, that your gut health must be great. Do you
Mhm.
see that a lot with clients coming in? Is that kind of a myth that you've heard throughout your career as well?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's so prevalent in the medical space as well, which is very unfortunate because we know how someone looks on the outside does not tell us a whole lot about what's going on the inside. And I really think that's where a lot of I don't like to use this word lightly, but I'll say it, medical gaslighting can come in when you can be going to maybe a practitioner and you're saying, hey, I'm feeling these symptoms. I don't feel good. And they're kind of like, oh, you're fine. It's all in your head. You're just a new mom. You're meant to be tired. Those sort of things. And it really starts to grind down on your connection with yourself and being in tune with your body and starts to mess with that communication line. And I absolutely do agree that sometimes that narrative of, oh, you look fine on the outside, you must be healthy on the inside. And that's absolutely not the case.
It's a two-way street in the sense that a lot of the times the stuff that's going on internal, we can see external effects of that. Like when you are breaking out in your skin, sometimes that can be, or your hair falling out, or for me, not sleeping or dull, dry skin. Suddenly there is a gut health imbalance. So it's confusing how it will go both ways. But I think something that all of our listeners and us as well have to remember is that we have to be our own advocates and we have to know if something feels wrong in our body. And I think
Absolutely.
reconnecting with your body, a lot of us have never connected. So we don't even know what that reconnection point really looks like, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think you bring up a great point that symptoms can look different for different people. And so, yeah, maybe you do have a lot of skin breakouts, and that's a symptom that your gut is off for you. Maybe you struggle with bloating. Maybe you struggle, though, with deep fatigue. Maybe you struggle with just getting to 3 p.m. every day without having ample coffee or a nap. All of those things, they are still symptoms. They don't always have to be those physical symptoms that are showing up on the outside of your body. They can be hormonal imbalances. They can be autoimmune conditions. They can be joint pain, so many different things. And so that's why I'm always encouraging women, but everybody, that if you feel off in your body, listen to that because that's your body trying to tell you something.
Now, what's the correlation between our hormones and our gut health? Are hormones produced in the gut or is that produced somewhere else?
Yep. So it's kind of a bidirectional situation. So your gut health is really going to be impacting your hormones. When I'm working with clients, I do a lot of gut testing. I'm also doing a lot of hormone testing. I'm always starting with the gut though, because your hormones are going to be responding so much to what's going on in your gut. How I describe it is your hormones are responding to something else that's going on. So if you're having hormonal imbalances, it's not usually the hormones that are the root cause to that. We have to take it back further and ask, okay, what is causing your hormones to be off? So these can be a few different things, definitely gut stuff. So if you have a hidden gut infection, our guts can be a harbor for a lot of hidden infections. That's why testing is really important. If you have a hidden infection in there, if you are stressed to the max, your nervous system is just out of whack, if you're not sleeping well at night, if your adrenals are taxed, if you have a poor diet, if you're exposed to a lot of environmental toxins, all of these things can actually be the root cause to your hormones being off. So typically, when I'm working with people who are struggling with hormonal issues, I'm not always diving right in by testing hormones. I'm actually testing some possible root causes first.
So it really does all start in the gut.
It does. The gut is
Wow.
truly the center of all health. And I know we've all heard that, but it's so true. The gut is running the show on literally every single system in your body. And so, for any sort of health goals, it's always a good idea to weave in some gut health support into there because it's impacting so many things in your body.
Now, when it comes to support, if somebody has never invested at all in their gut health, they know that they have some issues, but they just want to start supplementation somewhere. Where would you recommend starting? Is that probiotics? Is that digestive enzymes? What is a good starting point for most people? Of course, it's not a
Yeah,
one size fits all.
absolutely. So when we're talking supplement side, if somebody is like, hey, like I just kind of want to up level my routine, get some supplements in there, Definitely, it depends. We do have a quiz on our website, just gutpersonal.com. The reason why Bridget and I created this quiz, because Bridget's also a functional medicine dietitian, is because we know that supplements have to be very personalized. For example, if you're somebody who struggles with a lot of gut symptoms, like you or I had, starting with a probiotic is absolutely not what you want to do, because starting a probiotic can actually be like fuel to the fire. So, like I was explaining, I had a huge overgrowth of bacteria. Doctors were telling me to take a probiotic, so I was, and it was just fuel to the fire. I was bringing more bacteria into an already overgrown situation. So if you struggle with a lot of gut symptoms, I actually don't recommend starting with a probiotic. However, if you're somebody who feels really good, maybe you don't have a lot of digestive symptoms, maybe you just want to optimize how you feel, then yeah, adding in a good high quality probiotic can be really nice to give your gut health a little bit of support. But that's why taking the quiz on our website can be really helpful, because it will help tell you kind of where you fall and which supplements could be really great for you. So maybe a probiotic. Something that I love recommending to almost every single person that I talk to is a good magnesium supplement. If you're not taking a magnesium supplement, it's a game changer. When I started supplementing with magnesium, I found improvements to my bowel movements, got me more regular. I found improvements to my mental health, just my nervous system was able to chill out. My stress and anxiety went down. I slept better at night. PMS symptoms improved. So I do believe that magnesium can be a really helpful supplement for a large majority of people. And a good probiotic could be great if your gut is ready for that.
And they can really find all of that out by taking that free quiz online, right?
Yep. Take the free quiz and we'll tell you exactly what you need.
That's amazing. And then if they want to take it a step further, they can do an at-home poop test like we did. Just so glamorous and so wonderful. But it actually wasn't as bad as I was preparing for. And I had done one when I first started working with a naturopath over 10 years ago. And I had leaky gut, I had SIBO, I had everything under the sun. So I was really fascinated when we went through my results that it really wasn't that bad. So it's living proof that your gut does change.
Absolutely. Oh, it's shifting all of the time. And the gut test, it really, humbling experience, but it's so worth it because we can actually see what's going on at the level of the microbes going on in your large intestine. So, for example, you mentioned the SIBO test. SIBO tests are great. That's measuring for what's going on in your small intestine, but we also want to make sure that we're checking out the microbes in your large intestine, because that's actually where a majority of all the microbes are living. There's actually not supposed to be many microbes at all up in your small intestine. Problems arise when there are bacteria. So we want to look at what's going on in your large intestine. Are there fungi or yeast overgrowths, parasites, pathogens, inflammation? So we can measure for all of that with that gut test.
I heard something in a podcast interview that I was listening to on Dr. Will Cole's podcast not too long ago, and they were saying that almost everybody has parasites. Is that true?
100%. It is
God.
so true. I know. Whenever I are like, oh, squirming in their seats, but it's true. They're everywhere in our environment. And they actually, many of them live very symbiotically with the host, AKA you. And so most people are walking around with parasites and they don't even know it. So when I'm running these tests, I'm looking for the big bad parasites, where if those pathogenic sort of parasites are popping up, I want to get them out. But I'm also looking for smaller, more friendly types of parasites. And I'm not always treating. If they pop up, it's not always my first, oh, we got to go after this thing, because many times they're not the source of the symptoms. They are just simply a resident in your gut, and they can actually be very symbiotic with you.
So I'm envisioning a parasite like a worm that's just like in your body. Is that even like the good parasites? Is that still what it is?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I know it's gross to think about, but your gut is home to over 100 trillion different microbes. There are so many little critters living inside of you that we just aren't even aware of. And yeah, parasites fall in there as well.
And are we getting them through our food, through our environment? How do you get a parasite?
So both parasites specifically, both. You can get it via food. You can also get it via the environment. And like I said, some of them can be problematic. Absolutely. Some can cause an acute, like a quick onset type of reaction, giving you a lot of symptoms. With the gut test that I do, I'm also measuring your immune system. So if I find that, let's say I have a client who's like, hey, I just went to Mexico with my friends, and ever since I've gotten back, nothing has been the same. My gut hurts, my stomach is in pain, I'm having diarrhea. So we do a gut test and say that we find the parasite pop up on her gut test and her immune system is like off the charts. It's firing like crazy. We know that this is an acute response. So she just recently got this parasite. Her immune system is like, red alert, let's clear it out. So if I see a pattern such as that, that's usually when I'm like, okay, yeah, let's help your immune system out. Let's get this parasite out of there. And then we'll see the symptoms resolve. But if we find that the immune system, maybe it's chilling, maybe your immune system is not actively reacting to something, maybe this specific strain of parasite is not really a harmful one. There's not a lot of information that's telling us, hey, this is a problem right now. We got to get it out. Then sometimes I'll just leave it.
Well, I feel pretty confident in the fact that we just went over my test, and I don't think there was any parasites on there, was there?
None of the ones that we checked for. You were clear.
Yes. Amazing. I think the biggest thing was, and I'm going to completely botch the terminology of it. What is it? Hypocalori? What did I have on my test?
The H. pylori.
H. pylori. Okay, now explain, is that basically just a bad bacteria? And is that something that, I know we have a supplement protocol for it, but is that something that once it's worked out of your system, it kind of stays away, or can that still have flare-ups?
Yeah. So H. pylori, very, very common bacteria. Upwards of 2/3 of the population actually has this bacteria growing in their stomach. Most people are asymptomatic, so they don't even know they have it. However, the people who are coming to me, they're not asymptomatic because they're having a lot of symptoms. What H. pylori does is a few different things. Number one, because it lives up in the stomach, it can cause a lot of upper GI symptoms. So think things like reflux, heartburn, GERD, stomach aches, nausea, that sort of thing. But also, what H. pylori does is it decreases your body's stomach acid. And I was talking about stomach acid in the beginning. It's one of our really important digestive juices, which helps to digest our food, helps to absorb certain nutrients, also helps to protect our body from any incoming pathogens that might come in. And when that stomach acid goes down, it really impacts digestion all downstream. So H. pylori can be a big root cause to issues with bloating, to not digesting your foods properly. It can be a big root cause to certain nutrient deficiencies like vitamin B12 or iron. It can be a root cause to things like SIBO, because when bacteria starts to overgrow in the small intestine, that can happen when there's not enough acidity, and that can happen because of the H. pylori. So H. pylori can kind of be a problematic bacteria for some people. But again, some people have it, they don't even know about it. So I am testing for H. pylori. The test that we use, the one that you did, it's a PCR test, which means it's very, very sensitive. We're measuring the actual DNA of this microbe. So you could go to your doctor, get tested for H. pylori. They'll test it usually via breath test. And the gut test that I use is much more sensitive. So we can pick it up at much smaller levels, which is great because if somebody's struggling, they get tested at their doctor, it comes back negative, but then I do a gut test and I'm like, oh, nope, it's actually there and it's growing. Let's get rid of it. We're able to jump on it much sooner. So some people will come back and their levels are very, very low. Maybe they don't have a lot of those upper GI symptoms that I was talking about. Maybe they don't have any pain or burning, no ulcers. Sometimes I'll say, okay, this isn't our biggest fish to fry right now. Let's address some of the other imbalances that we found. However, some people come to me and these levels are really, really high. They're showcasing a lot of these symptoms. I'll ask about family history of ulcers, stomach cancer, anything like that. I want to go after that H. pylori and get rid of it. And so again, it kind of depends on the person sitting in front of you. And I think that's what's really important about working with a practitioner who understands the different complexities that go into all of this.
Now, you brought up family history too. Is a lot of our gut health issues hereditary? Is a lot of it passed down, or is it based off of our environments?
So genetics are not nothing. However, they're absolutely not everything. And sure, some things can definitely be from your gene pool. But how I describe genes is they can be like a light switch. With some genes, you have to be able to switch them on. What switches that light switch are things like your nutrition, diet, lifestyle. And so many people, they can totally not have to worry about familial history of different conditions, gut symptoms, as long as they're really working on the things that they can control, like their nutrition and their lifestyle. So, do they play a part? Of course. And I'm always asking about that, but are they the end all be all? Absolutely not.
So if you were to do gut tests, let's say you could do them on a kid and
Yeah.
they're able to see some of that bad bacteria that's in there, some of the stomach issues that they're having that young. If they take care of it when they're at a young age, are they more likely to not have those issues later on?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when
Hmm.
it comes to kids and gut health, your child's gut health is really, really important because dialing in gut health now when they're at a young age gives them better chances for a healthier future. Our gut is truly established. That whole microbiome is established in our first few years of life. And so that's why, I mean, on my intake forms, when I'm starting with a new client, I'm asking their method of birth. I'm asking if they were breastfed or bottle fed as a baby. All of these things are really going to impact your adulthood microbiome. So, yeah, it absolutely plays a role. And then, specifically talking about women, when we have a child, we pass our gut health down to our child. Important to be thinking about your child's gut health. And especially whenever I'm working with a new mom or someone who wants to get pregnant, I'm always encouraging, hey, let's really start working on your gut health now because it's going to set your baby up for the best future as well.
Wow, I never even thought about that, but it makes so much sense. Now, this may be a random question, but when it goes from being breastfed or bottle fed, how that's one of the questions on your intake form,
Yeah.
if the baby is being breastfed and the mom is having bad gut health issues or hormonal issues or any of that, can that be passed through breast milk?
Certain things can. I mean, it kind of depends on what's going on for her. If it's like from an infection, if it's, from environmental things. So some things can. Typically, what I'll recommend is to take a probiotic while you're nursing, while you're breastfeeding, because you're going to help re-inoculate your baby's microbiome via your breast milk and supplementing with a probiotic. So it can be a really great time, both during pregnancy, during breastfeeding. Of course, always speak to your doctor first, but to bring in a good probiotic. That is something that I usually recommend to my clients.
That also helps to boost immunity as well, right?
It,
Having a good probiotic.
oh, yeah, because over 70% of our immune system resides in our gut. So, in order to have a healthy, robust immune system, you got to have a good, healthy gut as well.
So a lot of these people that are constantly having colds or strep,
Yeah.
or even when we had COVID going around like crazy, a lot of that goes back to gut health.
100%. That is a symptom of poor gut health. If you're somebody who feels like you just constantly get sick, a new cold is out there and you constantly are picking it up, that's a little nod to, hey, let's take a look at your gut health because there's likely something off in there.
You had mentioned in the very beginning that one of your main issues was with constipation.
Yeah.
And that was another thing that I kept seeing on the poll that we did today. And it was talking about the fact that there is a direct correlation between constipation and higher levels of depression.
Yep.
I assume that is just because you have all that bad bacteria just stuck in your gut, right? But is there more science behind it as to why that correlation is so strong?
Oh, it's huge. Yeah, going back to that gut brain connection. So, our gut and our brain, they talk to each other 24/7 and it's a bidirectional highway. So, your brain's talking to your gut is talking back to your brain. And this is via the gut brain axis. And so, this is why gut health issues can look like things like stress, anxiety, depression, poor mood, and also your anxiety, depression, or poor mood disturbances can also be impacting your gut microbiome. So, your gut is responsible for making 95% of your serotonin, which our serotonin is like our happy hormone. And so, of course, if things are off in the gut and you don't have enough of that beneficial bacteria to produce that serotonin, you have too much of the bad guys that are causing a bunch of inflammation. Maybe you've heard of the term inflammation in the gut equals inflammation at the level of the brain. So there's a lot of different things that can compound and lead to mood disturbances being from issues at the level of the gut.
Hmm. And if you were to be on an SSRI or an antidepressant or an anti anxiety, is that helping the issues with the gut or is that inflaming the gut but only helping the brain? How does that work?
I would argue that it's helping the gut because if you are medication is a miracle, right? I mean, it absolutely saves lives, and some people need to be on it, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And what that kind of going back to what we were talking about, how your gut and your stress can kind of become this vicious cycle. If you're, let's say, not taking a medication to help out with your anxiety, for example, and so you are super anxious and you do not feel good, and this is going to be impacting your gut health. Your gut is not going to be able to heal if you are stressed out, you're anxious, you are not feeling good, you don't have joy in your life. We need all of those things in order to heal. And so for some people, medication can be a godsend and it can absolutely be a huge tool to have in your wellness journey to just help you feel your absolute best.
I love how you're just saying there's no shame in it, because I think a lot of the times we like to try and do things as natural as possible, especially when you're working in the functional health space or with naturopaths. And I think it scares people away from
Yeah.
getting on medication when there are mental health issues that need to be addressed through medication. So I love the fact that you have that standpoint on it. And I hope that our listeners are really absorbing that, because there is no shame in it. And a lot of the times that can only expedite your healing process. And I think people assume it does the opposite.
I absolutely agree. I love it.
Every single time I have a conversation about the gut brain connection, and I feel like a broken record on here talking about it so much, but I just know from my own personal experience too, it wasn't until I started addressing some of those gut issues and started feeling better that
Yeah,
my confidence started increasing, because you can't be confident when you don't feel good in your body and when you don't feel connected to your body. So I'm
absolutely.
curious what your confidence journey looked like once you started addressing some of those issues and started feeling better again in your own skin.
Oh my goodness, night and day, truly. And, you know, I I relate so much of that to that gut brain connection. When my gut was an absolute mess, I was so anxious. My mood was absolutely shot. I had no energy. And of course, that was taking a toll on my confidence as well. And that's all kind of speaking to the mental, emotional side of the confidence, but the physical stuff as well, because I was so physically bloated. Like I said, I couldn't fit into my clothes. I wasn't recognizing myself in the mirror and I was so confused and absolutely defeated. So, definitely it took a hit at my confidence. And I would say that beginning to learn that these symptoms are not all in my head, that there is a root cause to this and all I got to do is just figure out those answers, find a practitioner who will actually listen to me. Those things, as they started to click, is what started to increase my confidence. I started to become more confident that I could heal. I started to become more confident that I was doing the right things for my body, that I was able to interpret these symptoms. Because I think what can happen when you struggle with a lot of gut symptoms, you form such a disconnect with your body, right? It's almost like this distrust. I had a lot of anger. Like, why can my friends eat whatever they can eat? And yet I have to be so diligent and I'm working so hard, and yet I'm still not feeling well. So you can form this big disconnect. And I think over the years of research and working on my own gut, it really started to gradually increase this confidence in myself, this trust and appreciation for my body and all the miraculous things that it does every single day. And so I see it so many other women struggling with this too. And I get it. And so what I'm always out here saying is, come with me because I know where you're at, but I also know how much better you can feel.
Beautifully said. I love that so much. And now that you're at this stage in your career and this stage of your healing journey, what does confidence look like to you? What does it mean to you?
Hmm.
Such a loaded question.
I know. I'm like, what direction should I take this in? I would say confidence to me looks like, this might sound a little cheesy, but truly showing up as your best self and showing up as your most authentic self, I think is so huge. And that was something that I lacked for a long time when I just wasn't feeling good because I felt like a stranger in my own body. And then I was, being told that everything looks fine, you're normal. I was having this massive distrust with my body. And so I think from where I was then to where I am now, the confidence in just who I am and understanding my body and having that appreciation, I mean, it's tenfold. And so I truly think that it's such a beautiful place to get to is finding just peace and acceptance with your truest, most authentic self.
Absolutely. And you can only do that by starting in the gut.
That's right,
It all
baby.
comes back.
It really does.
So, if people wanted to work with you directly, if they want to order one of the tests, which you guys were so gracious to give our listeners a discount when you use code
Yes.
more than for your gut testing and all the supplementation, are you always taking on new clients? What does that process look like?
Yes, absolutely. So there's a few different ways to work together to get the testing. There's the gut test package, which those just live on our website. People can use your code, get a juicy discount. This is what you did. And so people can just go to gutpersonal.com and look for gut testing package, and it's right on there. I also run a group program, which I am I love group programs because I love the community aspect of women coming together who are on similar wellness journeys, have similar goals, and going through gut healing together. I run that group program and we include the gut testing with it. And that opens, I would say, probably 3 or 4 times a year. I open up the doors for that. And then I also do private coaching. So, with the private coaching, that's kind of the highest level of support. That's where we're digging into your hormones. I'm checking out your adrenals. We're looking at your cortisol levels. We're doing the whole shebang. And I do have a cap on how many clients I can take for that. But there is a link on our website to book a call with me where we can hop on a call, see if it's a great fit, and we can go from there.
I will put all of the information on where they can contact you and that link in our bio in the show notes below. And I just appreciate you pouring so much wisdom and all your time into this episode. It was so fascinating. I feel like even though I studied this stuff forever ago, I didn't get my degree in it, I will say. I switched my degree to marketing. So I have a little bit of an excuse as to why I don't know all this. But I do still think it's so interesting because you forget the
Oh,
importance
yeah.
of it. And it's so nice to hear it talked about in such a casual way.
Oh, good. And honestly, I'm still learning every single day as well. I mean, just this whole entire field of nutrition and gut health, it's still in its infancy, which I find so exciting because just more and more is coming out. We're learning more every single day, and it makes me really excited for the future and where we're headed.
If you're loving our pod, please take a moment to follow, download, rate, review, and most importantly, share with a friend. These small steps help us continue bringing amazing content every single week. Make sure you're following us on Insta at More Than Ink and subscribe to our newsletter at morethanink.com for exclusive More Than merch drops and info on in-person meetups. We appreciate you chilling with us and are always here to remind you you are so much more than. We'll see you next week.